Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Hello, gatekeepers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is our 10th and final show of the summer event that we have called #Liberty. And it has been absolutely fantastic. It's been wonderful to hear people that are in other countries that had no idea what the story was, or had an idea, but didn't get to hear all those deep dives and those anecdotes and those stories of these wonderful, ordinary people that just found something deep down inside that they believed in, that they thought was worth struggling for, worth fighting for, worth keeping, and or obtaining in some cases. So it has been absolutely fantastic to go down the journey of the American Revolution, from the first rumblings under the elm tree in Boston Common, where actually that was almost your first Continental Congress, really, where people started to gather, and then they said, we need to get people in the other colonies together too, and see what they're feeling. It didn't just start in Boston at the Green Dragon with Samuel Adams and Paul Revere and the wonderful words of Thomas Paine and so many others, John Adams. So many people that you didn't get to see in some of the shows that we featured here. Sons of Liberty just omitted so many important characters. And we know, because we went over those and how they played with the history very liberally there. And then again, in turn, some of it was so good, and the drama was so wonderful, and the people that they got right, and the people that they just took, I hate to use the word again, but extra liberty with, that was a little bit frustrating. And I'm sure for the memory of those people, too. I mean, it's important to tell the truth. So that's what we've been doing. We've been going through it, finding out what it means to you. Did any of these people touch you in a way that inspired you to maybe stand up for something that you believe in, or maybe give you the inspiration to reach out and start that group, or teach kids history, or to teach your grandkids or your kids. So that's basically why we did this. It's all in a playlist for everybody. It's all free. I highly recommend you sit down with somebody that, now you can teach them. And you've been through this, and you've got your ideas and the things that stuck out to you, and the stories that you want to tell, and you can share those together. And I think that's so important. And I think it's also important that we keep these memories alive, and go, to museums, go to these sites where history happened. Not just the American Revolution, but I think it's so important, especially for these times, to look back at how did it start. We saw a bunch of, older men in wigs and standing over a lot of important documents, and there's so many portraits painted and illustrations made and books written and biographies spoken of and told, and stories and legends that carried on. And we dug into some of those legends, and we found out a lot of them weren't true. What was truly inspiring, I think, on this trip was to go back and find out, okay, these things, were made up or way exaggerated and picked up through the decades and centuries, and just totally obscured the individual. And when we dug down into the individual, we found so many more important things that were actually true. And those are the stories. Why would you want to change it? It's just like anything that we talk about here on this show, whether it's paranormal, supernatural, true crime, history, conspiracy. we always find that they add to it, and we always wonder why, because the truth of the story is just as intriguing, and it's very important, especially in history. History should be told as it happened, plain and simple, especially if you're teaching young ones. And I had the wonderful experience of being able to go somewhere that was close to me where I live. As you know, I live in New Jersey and I'm basically surrounded. This was the crossroads for the American Revolution. So much of it happened, in New York and Pennsylvania campaign and here in Jersey and the skirmishes and everything all around and all through the other colonies too in the South. But here, so many important things happened, and you go on class trips when you're a kid. If you're in New Jersey, and you get on the bus and you remember going through the museums and stuff, but um, it's different going back as an adult and seeing with adult eyes and heart, um, and taking in those things. It's not just about the cannonballs and how many people were there, how many people battled, how many wounded, how many lost, how many, this or that. It's so much more because there were people. There were people with a dream, and there were people with, I think, that started out just like one of our wonderful people that we met along the way, Joseph Plum Martin, who is one of my absolute favorites because as a young man, he didn't know what else to do. He was afraid he was going to miss it. He was afraid that he was going to be working on the farm or wherever it was that he lived, and all of these young men were going to come back with war stories and just amazing tales, and he didn't want to miss it. And in his first parts of his journal, you can hear how amazed he was at how quickly they were moving through and how quickly he became, as he put it, to put on the paint of a soldier. And at the end, his wonderful story of how they all just went back home. After 8 years of all this, they just went home, never to be probably seen again. And then he wrote his wonderful book afterwards, and it's just an amazing journey. And I'm so glad you guys have come along with me on this. Now, a couple of really quick things I wanted to say here while we're still doing housekeeping. We had several guests that were coming on tonight. I don't know if they're going to pop in. I see one in the green room now. I got you, sweetheart. I see you there. We're going to bring you in just a minute. Steve was going to come in and bring in Holden. If he wants to pop in and do that, that's wonderful. They are very tired. They had a new baby at home, and we absolutely understand. And we just want the best for them. And I told you it was going to be rough first couple of weeks. So they're just very tired. So Steve may pop in tonight, but if not, we just wish him all the best and as much rest and love as they can hold right now. New parents and lovely little Holden Chandler, and we're just so glad that he's part of our family now. Miss Lynn Monet was going to be here tonight, and she is extremely under the weather. So I ask you to please send her healing vibes and lots of love and energy. But as I said, I had the wonderful opportunity to go to a battlefield not far from where I live. It's about a half an hour, a little more, from where I am, a little bit west of where I am. And it's funny how long you live near something and you just take it for granted. I'm sure you've got stuff in your hometown too, right there near you, and you probably, maybe you went as a kid, or you haven't really gone back, and you kind of take it for granted. Yeah, that's where that happened. And then you have somebody new come along, maybe to visit or something else, and you see it with their eyes and their vantage point of it. Maybe you take them there and you tell them about what you know about it, and it's really neat to have that. But I got to go with my son to the Battle of Monmouth, the battlefield, and amazing, just amazing. You never get over walking onto ground that holds those kind of memories. I mean, these trees, they pulled that blood up through their roots. These are some of them are witness trees. They were there, and you can look across the field, and you can surmise after being on several battlefields, this grove of trees probably wasn't there at the time because they would have never been able to shoot through there. So you can kind of get the lay of the land. But when you have the museum and the everybody that puts in everything that they have, that they enjoy so much, and that put their love and respect into it, it really shows in the museum. And I have a guest tonight. I'm going to bring him on here in about 10 minutes. And I'm just thrilled to have him. And I can't wait to introduce him to you. But I see our little Holden here, and I want to bring him in here first because he's such a little dude. Steve, you ready, darling? Thumbs up? Okay, come in here and say hi.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Here is, let me introduce to you, Holden Chandler Stockton.
Hello, darling. We
He's
love
just
you so much. Don't
he's
wake him up if
waving
he's
at you
asleep.
there.
Don't
He's
wake him
waving
up if
at you
he's
there. He
asleep.
just had
Oi,
some
man. Oi,
just
man.
had a feed, and he's going to sleep right
Yes,
now.
he is.
He's a good boy.
He is. Oh, God, he's adorable.
Yeah.
He's adorable, sweetheart. I'm so glad to see him. Oh,
Oh
my goodness. Look at that baby.
Can't
Oh,
really get a good look at him.
you are so loved.
Got my boy
I
dad
don't give a darn about
t-shirt
you,
on.
Steve. Just hush. Hello, Holden. How are you doing, darling? You are so loved. Everybody in this household just loves you so much. Everybody in this chat, they're slinging bacon at you, sweetheart. They love you so much.
Bacon.
Ain't he precious? Look at him. Support that head.
He's like, "What are you doing, Dad?"
Yep.
Yeah, he's
Yep.
got a whole
He's
head
had it.
full of hair. Look at
He's
that,
had it. Yeah, he
just
does.
hardy, shaggy.
Oh, God bless.
But he likes to be held.
He does. I know you're exhausted too, sweetheart.
Yeah, I finally got a nap this afternoon. I slept for
Did you?
about 2 hours. That's the most sleep I've got in a row since last Wednesday evening.
Little angel.
We
Hello.
went in for
So
a
good to meet you,
routine,
baby.
what was going to be the last exam before baby day.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Guess what? You ain't going nowhere."
Hello, Holden. Right. All the
They
love. All
checked
the
her.
love.
And
Look at the
then
hair.
Thursday afternoon, he was born at 4:31 p.m. Eastern time. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 19 and a half inches long. And
And
I'll have
how
to
is
double
Nick?
check with Nicole. She's doing good.
Good.
She's resting comfortably. But I want to check, I think, Dimensional Horse, you and one other person hit the
Wow.
day right. So I think it's going to be you, Dimensional Horse. I'll have to double
Oh,
check.
wow.
You did get the day, but one other person got the day.
He's going to have the best bedtime
We're going to go
stories
to
ever.
the tiebreakers, the weight and the length. But
Oh, gosh.
there's a little Holden channel.
We love you, darling. Oh, he's sleeping. Steve, you should
Yeah,
go get some sleep with him. You should go lay down and because
yeah,
what is he sleeping now? Maybe 2 hours at a time, something like that?
some 2 to 4.
Oh, hey, you're getting lucky. If you're getting 2 to 4, you're on the right track, kiddo. Pretty soon it'll be 6 and you won't know what happened. You'll be so glad.
Yeah, that's the littlest Stockton. I told you he might open his eyes a little bit.
Little
Can't really tell,
gas,
but
little
but I
babe.
think he's going to have green eyes like his old man. So,
Oh, wow.
but
Oh, that's
a lot
wonderful.
of people say he looks like me, his nose, his chin, and particularly his ears and stuff. I got mine covered up, but yeah, I got my boy dad shirt on.
Boy, Dad,
Hey
that's great.
everybody, Vixen, Catheta, D-Rock,
We love you.
lots of
Just
love.
sending lots and lots of love, honey.
Yeah, I
Lots and lots
appreciate
of
it.
love.
Me and
Lots and lots
Holden
of love.
and Nicole love all you guys.
And we love you right back. And I'm here for you anytime, sweetie. When you call Cisco, you say, "Hey, look, I got something going on." I get on it and I send you about 5 or 6 things you can do real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been through it. I know what you're going through.
He's
We love you.
resting good. We had a pediatrician, his first one at the pediatrician today, and then we got a follow up tomorrow. But everything looks good. He's doing good.
That's a blessing, sweetheart.
I think he might be getting upset here.
Probably got a little gas. You go get some sleep, honey. Thank you,
Okay.
thank you for bringing him in, and give Nick a hug and tell her that
bye,
Cisco
Holden.
said, "Good job, baby. Good job."
He did. Look at that. I said, "Tell him bye." He's raising his hands up there.
Hi, baby.
Look
Hi,
at that.
darling.
I know
love
he's just doing
you.
that. I'm not
He's got a
facilitating that.
gas
My other
pocket.
arm's in him. Yeah, he's getting ready to get upset. I'm
That's a
going to
gas
go ahead
pocket.
and head.
Go,
He's got
baby.
a healthy set of legs on him. Let me
He's
tell you.
get lots of rubbing on the
Yeah.
back. You'll get that gas pocket out.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
love you,
We're
Holden.
gonna go. Love everybody.
Get
Have
some
a good
sleep,
night.
sweetheart.
Bye bye.
We love you. Oh, look at him. How precious is that? Oh my gosh, I could cry. That's the first time I mean, I've seen pictures, but the first time I got to see him, that was my little godson. So there you go. And I know he's got a lot of godparents out there. He's a lucky kid. He's got the best bedtime stories and everything else. But the number one thing you worry about first is everybody's okay, baby's okay, mom's okay, dad'll get through it. Dad'll get through it because you don't have a choice, sweetheart. We love you so much. Lots of love to the Stockton family. And thank you guys for being here. So, where did I go? I went to the Battle of Monmouth. And while I was there, something so cool happened. I wanted to go into the gift shop for a second just to see, what they had. And I had gone all around. And while I walked up, now you know me, I hear a mom and dad are there and they're asking questions to the two gentlemen behind the counter. And there was two young boys there. And the coolest thing they were asking about, I came in the middle conversation. So I overheard that they were talking about what Indian tribes worked with what side and how did they choose, who worked with, who fought with the British and who fought with, the colonial army. And I was listening to the answers. I thought they were really cool. Um, the guys definitely knew what they were talking about. And the mom was so intrigued, and the dad was putting his, sense in. And the young men were asking such good questions. Well, when they were all done, I told them about Liberty and I gave the mom a card and I said, please watch it with them, go over it with them, answer the questions. You can come back here and you can talk to them more about it. It'd just be wonderful. And she was talking about how they don't teach it in school. I'm like, can you imagine? We knew that, I just didn't know how bad it was, but that's why we've done this. But I asked a question of one of the gentlemen, and he took us around. And not only did he answer my questions, but we had a lovely conversation. And he told me a few things. And I said, I just love to have you on my podcast. We're doing this right now. Please come on and tell us whatever you'd like to tell us. I told him that we were studying the Culper spy ring last week, and he mentioned some things that I wasn't aware of, and I thought that was kind of cool. And I invited him to come on and talk to you guys about it. So please welcome historian John Resto. I hope I said that right. Come on in here, John, and thank you so much. Welcome. You're muted. Let's get you unmuted. I got you on my side unmuted. Hit your mic if you can
There
hear
we
me.
go.
Yep, there you go. Hello. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's wonderful to
See you
have
again.
you. It's wonderful
Thank
to
you.
have you. Now, I didn't get a bio on you. I didn't ask. Would you like to tell us a
That's all
little bit
right. That's
about
all right. Yeah,
how
sure.
you got started and all this and everything else? You were just wonderful with the young men that were asking the questions, and I could tell as your face lit up that's why you're doing it, just like me.
I love history. I have a degree in history. I have a bachelor's in history. That was 25 years ago. Just been in history for most of my life.
Mhm.
Living in New Jersey, especially. The Revolution is my favorite. Anywhere you live in New Jersey, there are historic sites all over the place, no matter where you're at, which makes it great. I've been at Monmouth, I think around from 2016, 2017.
Mhm.
I started volunteering there. Before that, I used to volunteer at Greenbrook, New
Okay.
Jersey, their historical society. And then from there, I got up into Heritage Trails organization based out of Bridgewater, New Jersey. And I was vice president for a few years, and I did programming for a few years. So I booked all the speakers. Then once I got into Monmouth, that became my main focus.
Mhm.
And I used to volunteer at Red Bank Battlefield, not Red Bank, New Jersey, in the shore, but it's a place called National Park, New Jersey. There was the Battle of Fort Mercer, Battle of Red Bank. It's literally right across from Philadelphia International Airport. And I was actually volunteering there first, doing tours for a few years, but it's about an hour and a half from my house. So it
It's a
became
lot.
it's a lot to drive. So little by little it became less and less, and to the point where they just stopped. They just stopped bothering with me. I stopped going, and I wish I could go back, but Monmouth is my main focus. That's where I'm there mostly every Sundays. I do the walking tours first Sunday of the month. I'm not a volunteer with the state, but we do have a group called Friends of Monmouth Battlefield. We are a not-for-profit organization, and we have a gift shop. So we run that every Sunday. We do lectures. Like this past Sunday, we had a lecture. The Sunday before that, I gave a walking tour. And then we do the reenactment, and we do other programs throughout the year. So small little group, but we're all dedicated, all volunteers. No one gets paid for this. We do it because we love history, and we have a very special place at Monmouth Battlefield State Park.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wanted to pull up a pic here.
And just for my background, I
go ahead,
did
honey.
Education for about 28 years. I was in education. Now I'm a public servant. I am a child care inspector for the state of New Jersey for the last almost 2 years.
Nice.
So some way, somehow, I'm always working with children or older kids or adults in education.
My mods are throwing up all your links. If there's another link you want them to throw up, please let them know. They got you on Instagram. You got questions for John. Listen, we got a lot of smart people in here, man. And they're loving history.
Most of my Instagram is a lot of bird photography. You may see.
Nice.
I do a lot of photography on the side. So you'll see a lot of bird stuff. Other pictures, sunsets, things like that. Not as much history on there. Usually just my bird stuff.
That's fine. That's fine. So this is what you see when you first walk in. I just got a few pictures, John. You'll probably see this quite a few times, but you can't hear me at all. Can you hear me now?
You know what? Hold on. I'm going to do it this.
Take your time.
Use earbuds, but forget it. All right. Now we're good.
Okay, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm good. I can hear you.
Okay, so this is the sign you usually see when you're going in, and I just took a couple of pictures of, the flag and how beautiful it looked against the blue. Now, the first thing I saw, I was just happy about this because I want to talk a little bit about him, because when I mentioned him to you, you were like, he didn't really do a lot of the, and I knew that, but the thing was, I was so proud of me because I didn't know what I was really walking into. We came around the back end. So we go in the front where, you have your museum. And I was coming into like kind of the back end of this because I was coming around the building, and I saw the statue and I said, I wonder who that is. And I said, wait a minute, let me see if I can guess it from the back. As we're walking towards it, I told my son, I said, oh, that's von Steuben. I mean, I could tell by the hat, Yeah. And he was running around the front and he goes, you got it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's how long we've been doing this. Yeah.
That's pretty much our only monument at the park.
I know, isn't that strange?
We don't have really any type of monuments of anything at the park, which is kind of sad, but that's New Jersey State Parks. And this was a separate organization. This is not state. The state did not do this. There was a group that paid for that and had that installed there. So it was not us.
And the way I felt like it was important, and the first thing I said when I was telling him about, telling my son about him, there was another couple there that were kind of listening, was the fact that they had all just left Valley Forge, and they had that time to spend learning a little bit more about how to be a soldier, learning a little bit more about, control and orders and, how to fight, and that's the part I think that they thought that, thank goodness he was there at Valley Forge and took that and made what, showed up at the Monmouth battlefield that day. Because this was their first battle after that, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, pretty much. Benjamin Franklin met him in Europe. They exaggerated his resume to make it more than what it was.
Mm-hmm.
but he understood how to train soldiers in the European style. He was a Prussian, fought with Frederick the Great, so he understood that. And when he came to Valley Forge, he did not speak any English. Prussian and French
Wow.
was like a universal language when it comes to military. So what happened is that he would give out orders, and for the Americans, they had to have officers who could understand French, like a Alexander Hamilton.
Yes.
Some of the aide-de-camps who probably had good education. Hamilton just happened to be living in an area where he had to speak French, so they would translate it. And he trained 100 soldiers, and those 100 would then disperse and train the other soldiers. So it would break it
Oh,
down
neat.
like that. They
Okay.
weren't all trained at one time.
Makes sense.
It's probably 100 of the better soldiers. And once they understood what to do, then they would break off and start training other regiments. And then they would break off and start training. Remember, when Valley Forge was done, when the Americans left to follow the British, they had almost 20,000 soldiers. Washington's army, 20,000. A lot of them did get trained, but there were a lot of new recruits that had very little training towards the end that may get recruited in April, May, and then they're out in June. So, but yeah, that's how it worked out. And then what he understood was when you tell a soldier what to do, they do it.
Mm-hmm.
He said when he came to America, when you tell a soldier what to do, he had to explain to him because they want to know why. He had to explain why you did something.
Why?
Where the European armies, you tell a British soldier what to do, that's it. There's no questioning. They do it.
They just do it.
But
yeah.
this is a different population that he was dealing with. And the only English he really knew was profanity, the cursing.
Which is understood by all.
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. But that's why I knew it was important, and I figured that's why. And I hadn't been through the whole field yet, so I didn't know that this was the only, bronze statue. I expected to see, but I understand now. I mean, a lot of times New Jersey, they don't put a lot of that kind of thing. Parks and stuff, yeah, maybe, but it's so funny in the battlefields.
National parks they're federal parks. They get the money. This is a state park, and
bronze statues are expensive.
Are just back. I mean, there's just so much that needs to be done. So they,
right.
We only could do as much, but state parks, yeah, they're suffering in a lot of places, and it shows on our battlefield with some of the structures that we have on site where they're in pretty bad shape.
Right. And I know you guys do the best you can. It was a lovely place, and I thought it was very well put together and very thoughtful. And you go through and it just flows you through. And they have the movie you can go in and see. I am feeling better. I told you guys I'd kick it in 24 hours. Raw garlic. You can't beat. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Everybody says I'm sick and I can't get over it. 3 to 5 cloves a day. But here I am. I don't even have a. But it takes a little out of you, but you brush through it just like these guys did. I guarantee you they were having a hard day. So I wanted to knock out Molly Pitcher first if I could, because so many people we did feature a lot about her and all the other ladies that did this type of thing, because there was more than one, trust me, and pretty much they all came under the whole Molly Pitcher. Just because they had a pitcher and they were running water. I think that was number one in battlefield in Monmouth, because it was 100 degrees, but tell us a little bit about her. And her name was probably Mary Hayes, wasn't it?
Well, her maiden name, I don't think we really know what her maiden name. In some websites will say Ludwig, Mary Ludwig as her maiden name. Hayes is her first husband. And then he passes away and she gets remarried again to a Macaulay. So it would be Mary Hayes Macaulay. Hayes is, at the time of the battle, he was an artilleryman up on Perrine Hill in Proctor's artillery. So as you probably see most pictures, that she's firing a cannon, I don't think, and this is stuff was proven in the 70s. So this
Okay.
isn't new. Whatever I'm saying is nothing that's new. It's been out there since the 70s, but obviously it looks and sounds better to say that Molly Pitcher fired the cannons as her husband died on the field. And that's what a lot of the stories is. She did not fire a cannon. She brought the water, because once a cannon is fired, you have to put the like a big mop and you swipe it out to get any embers out so that it doesn't blow up.
It's important.
So that's what happened. And there's only, and you brought up Joseph Plum Martin. There's only one primary source, and he wrote about, and he was, it's so hard to, let me see. I'm going to see if I can share. I'm going to see if I could share a map. Let me see if I could do it.
Okay. I think I can give you, it'll say share, and then we'll throw it to me, and then I can put it up. But just so you guys know, while he's looking for that, I searched and searched, and I told you I would try to find Molly Pitcher, and I found her, and here she is. That's her. That's Molly. And I got permission to put her picture up here. She is the unofficial mascot, I was told, of the battlefield. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, it is. And no animals are allowed in the visitor center. And we just say Molly is a service dog for Dr. Martin.
There you go.
And just runs all around and greets everyone.
She was adorable, absolutely adorable, and she was just as sweet as could possibly be, you know. But you know, the well is actually a spring, is it not? There's just a marker.
So there's tons of markers. I don't know if you can see my map now.
Okay. Yep. Let me put it up there, babe. It came through. Right. Here we go. This is going to work out fine. There we go. And I can see your pointer as well. So that's excellent.
Okay, so you can see my mouse.
I can see your arrow and your map. Yep.
So where we think Mary Hayes was at was right where it says Perrine Hill. Right?
Got it.
And then right below that, there is this dotted line with the circle dotted line. That is a fence. And it's probably a dividing line between farms. So you have your Perrine farm, and then you have your Sutton farm. And we do have part of the Sutton house, which is right there. And that's if you're at the visitor center, which is where it's down to the bottom left. It says Martha and Thomas Combs.
Yes. That's
where the visitor center is today. From there, a mile away, you could see the Sutton house. It's pretty beat up. There's other additions to it, but part of it is there at the time of the battle. So right on this fence line, Joseph Plum Martin was right on this fence line, and he looked behind him, and he wrote about seeing a woman, and a cannonball went between her legs and tore her dress up.
Her petticoats, yep.
That's the only primary source we have. It doesn't say who, doesn't say, oh, I saw Mary Hayes. It just describes a woman, and behind him would be the artillery. So with research and educating guesses, we think that is the source of her. So yes, this is where she would be. Now behind that, you see this line here. That is a spring, or probably a well here too. So as the park does have it as the spring, and when you're up, you can walk. And there's right back here, there is a wooden platform with some signage that talks a little bit about her. And when the leaves are down, you can see the water, and it is a hill. So she would have had to walk about a quarter of a mile, go down the hill, get the water with the buckets, canteens, walk another quarter mile back, and all this is going on. They are being fired on by the British artillery. So it's hot. So she may not have fired cannons, but what she was doing was very crucial. And I can only imagine what it was like to do that experience.
Very determined. Very determined.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where we have it as. So I'm going to go down here. You'll see my thing. You'll see this. It says William Wyckoff. This
Yes.
farm lane today is Wemrock Road. Wemrock Road comes down here. Can't say, but down here would be 33 business. And this is a road right here. There's another little spring. There's another natural spring. There is a stone that says Molly Pitcher Spring.
Yes.
All right. That
Mhm.
obviously could not be her spring
Because
because
right.
she would have had to come from here,
Mhm.
walk, run, get over here, bring back water.
Mhm.
And while this is happening, the British have their artillery pieces here, and the Americans and they're just firing back and forth. So it would be a dead man zone to
Mhm.
do that. And
Mhm.
people will see this and say, "Oh, I've been to Molly Pitcher Spring," but that is not it. Every year it's painted. There's flowers.
Mhm.
We don't do it. I don't think the state park does it.
Mhm.
But another group, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or the Scout, I don't know who does it, but every year they fix that. So
Mhm.
we don't know 100% where her water's at, but this would make the most sense
Yeah.
behind her or at a well at the Perrine Hill
Right.
family house.
And with Joseph Plum Martin, I mean, he really got to be a wonderful resource, for
He's
stuff,
everywhere.
He's
Yeah.
everywhere. Everywhere.
The only thing I would say about his thing is because his thing it's written 50 years later. It's written in
Right.
1832. The battle finished. The war ends in 1783. It's a long time, but it
Mhm.
is highly used by a lot of historians. And he wrote other stuff on Monmouth too, because
Mhm.
not only was he there, but he was part of a little fight in this little area here. This is an apple orchard here.
Mhm.
He was part of a fight there with 42nd Highlanders.
Incredible. Incredible. Well, there's your Molly Pitcher, guys. I'll tell you right now, and we're going to absolutely get back to this map. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the museum, the way it's laid out. Do you want to look at that for just a second and give us
Yeah,
your thought? When you first
so
walk in, I love this. Oh, freedom. I love that.
yeah, they do. So there were 80 African Americans,
Mhm.
Indians, mixed. The Rhode Island Regiment, which had probably the largest concentration of African American soldiers, and
Hmm.
eventually it would become all African American soldier
Mhm.
unit. It would
Wow.
become the first. It would become I think the first Rhode Island Regiment. It was the first and second. They consolidated it to the first Rhode Island Regiment, and it became one of the only segregated units of the Revolution.
Wow.
And the army of the army here was really the last mixed army, right? Because after this, everything is segregated until after World War II.
Isn't that incredible? This was the
So this
last
was
one.
from up
And that's something.
1783 up into probably the Korean War.
Mhm.
That's between that time there was always segregated units, but not during the American Revolution. You did have African Americans fighting with white soldiers. So
Yeah. And we talked about a little bit about that a couple of episodes ago where there are pictures with you've got 2 or 3 Oneidas with a couple of, other tribes all mixed in there. You've got African Americans, you've got people that are, I mean, just everybody together fighting a common enemy,
yeah,
and then on the other side is kind of that way too. It was just amazing. It's almost like, how did you know who you were shooting at? That's, just like that. I think that's the way a lot of these wars are. Go ahead. You sharing something?
I'm gonna look something up.
Go ahead.
If we have more stuff going. There's
Sure.
Okay.
You look up whatever you want to. You can share it anytime you like. These are the cannonballs, folks. And I just wanted to tell them real quick, between the 3-pounder, the 6-pounder, 12-pounder, and the 5.5-pound howitzer ball. This is incredible.
The Dutch 4-pounder is 5 pounds. So go figure.
Yeah. They're not come at you.
I want to
go
share
right ahead
with you.
Sure. Go right ahead.
Let's see.
They're not whiskey balls, Ted Branson. They're cannonballs. Whiskey balls. They love their treats. They're all eating snacks and everything else, just having a ball listening to you. So, but they're not whiskey balls, Ted. They're cannonballs, honey. You don't want to eat those.
I don't know if you can see that or no.
Send it the way you sent it before, and it should pop up.
Let me see. Window. Monmouth.
Love you, Tedders.
Is that working now?
Yep, I see her now. Here she comes.
Okay.
All
So
right, there we go.
this is one of my favorite paintings.
Oh yeah.
This is done by a Spanish from a guy from Spain,
Mhm.
and he's done a lot of stuff with the Spanish army in the American Revolution. And I think this picture is perfect in a sense of look at all the different people involved in this army. So this is called the March of Galvez. General Bernardo Galvez was in charge of all the Spanish forces in America, and they were fighting the British down in like Louisiana, Alabama, what would be Alabama, West Florida, fighting the British there. And he collected soldiers. And if you look, you'll see Native American, you'll see white, you'll see African American. And this would probably be one of the more diverse units of soldiers in the American Revolution. You got French, you have Spanish, a little bit of everything. And I just found this fantastic. I have this painting or print of it,
right,
that I bought from Augusto. So this was just amazing because it really shows. And if you look, you'll see the American flag, the 13-star Betsy Ross flag, and probably some type of Spanish flag. So this
very
is
much like the Civil War, where a lot of different, came in. You had all kind of, different troops. You had the Irish, you had the, all that. But I think this one, it was almost like you went around and you picked up, like you said, almost not so much stragglers,
no,
but people would join in.
Yep,
You
these
know,
people are and this is I think they're going to, it's either Mobile or Pensacola. So you have people volunteering, probably not all from that part of because at that time that's still Spanish.
Right.
Spanish and French there. So you having a lot of people volunteering to help out the Spanish who were indirectly helping the Americans and who were allies with the French. Spain never declared they declared war against Britain, but it was with France. They never recognized America officially, but they had been providing money and supplies to America right from the beginning with the French.
Lafayette had a lot to do with that too, where he was like, thank a kid, this 19-year-old kid that would just absolutely, just absolutely, I don't want to say worshipped Washington, but he very much looked up to him.
He did. He did.
He kind of did.
Lafayette's father died when he was 2 years old during, I don't know if it was the French and Indian War. He was, he was he doesn't remember his father. So I think very much he looked at Washington as a father. Hence, he named his child George Washington.
Yes, he did. So, isn't that something? Isn't that something, guys? So this was really quite the thing. Now, cannonballs, people really don't understand a lot about the cannonballs and how, there's all kinds of different shot. There's, there's grape shot. And there's all kind of different things. You have wonderful displays of those as well. The whole, the replicas of, what those look like and what it would be like to fire one of these. But a lot of these cannonballs, when they hit, they almost, was there specific kind that exploded? Or can you tell me?
The ones at the battle did not, because shrapnel. They would explode and break up in pieces.
Right.
They did not have this at the Battle of Monmouth. What you see there would be more common. Solid iron shot. That's it.
Man. And there's something very relevant to the Battle of Monmouth up into that time with the artillery. What was that was so significant?
It's the largest artillery duel of the battle, excluding any type of siege, such as Boston and Yorktown, where you probably have hundreds of cannons and mortars. But here, this was the largest, I think about 27 cannons
Yeah.
used at that artillery duel. There probably were more than that on combined with the two, but used at the one time about 27 from about 1 to almost 4 o'clock,
Yeah.
give or take.
Amazing. And this battle did last pretty much from dawn till dusk.
About 7:30 a.m. to 5:30, 6 o'clock, no daylight savings.
Uh-huh.
That's the fighting, but then you're not including the probably 3 or 4 or 5 hours prior to that where soldiers are getting ready,
Mhm.
they're trying to get organized. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of wasting of time, but trying to get 7,000-8,000 troops organized, ready to march in the right order to start, to have some type of fight.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does take a lot. I was military myself, and it's hurry up and wait, and then all of a sudden somebody starts firing, and that's all she wrote till the end. And they were under horrendous conditions as far as that. People don't think Jersey gets hot, but I did basic training in Fort Dix, and I can tell you it gets hot.
Yeah, it was about
Especially when you can't move, you can't adjust your uniform, you can't do what you want to do to survive. It had rained the day before, so now we've got humidity. And it was what, over 100 most of the day?
96 degrees, very humid.
Mhm.
Philadelphia was 112. Something was written about Philadelphia being about 112. So it was very, very warm that day for both sides, especially the British, where a lot of those officers and soldiers had to keep their uniforms on. Wool uniforms.
Wool uniforms. And if you've not touched those, it's not one layer of wool, it's several. And just amazing that, the cuffs that came up and the big collars and everything else.
It's multiple layers. It's not like a t-shirt. It's a shirt, a vest, a jacket. It's multiple layers that they're wearing. Wool today is not the same wool as 200 years, because I have a pair of wool socks. I said I would never wear that. And you can't even tell the difference between a wool sock from a cotton sock. That's how much they changed. So
if you ever had an old army blanket, you can kind of take about 4 of those and put them together, and that's about the width of some of the British uniforms. Now I know that by this time, some of the colonial, they were getting a little bit of uniform, but a lot of the militia were still providing their own. And I think you and I talked about this, and I think that's why they survived. Because look at the number of heat stroke guys, and look up here in American. See if you can see where it says heat stroke up top here, right here, and then nobody died of heat stroke on the American that we know of.
I'm
down here,
say there probably were a few. I would probably say a few, but nothing like what the British did.
59. And let me ask you this: I read something today that George Washington's horse died of heat exhaustion. Is that true?
So he had 2 horses. Nelson and Blueskin were some of his favorites, 2 favorite ones. And then just before the battle, the governor of New Jersey was William Livingston, and he gave Washington a horse prior to the battle. And I believe that's the one. And my friend's writing some new stuff on Monmouth. And I forgot what the horse, it was like Excellence or something like that. And I believe that's the horse that died, because in pictures, you'll see Washington on a white horse and a brown horse. So he would have multiple horses. But he did have ones that he rode a lot. They're probably used to the sounds of guns and artillery, but Nelson and Blueskin were his 2 favorite horses that were with him all the time.
Yeah. And he really felt a lot very well about it. There's lots of letters back and forth between Washington and Martha and the people that took care of his home. And there's lots of talk about, hey, I heard Martha put her eye on a horse she kind of like. Can we see if we can get that horse? It would make me happy. It would make me very it would make my day. Washington and Martha had this. We've talked about this on the show before. This love of decor and the new fabrics and the new fashions, and they had that kind of. He would be more upset, Washington, that the the new wood that came from wherever that they ordered, the grain wasn't matching up with something else, and this would just make him crazy,
Well,
and they'd have to
think,
fix it. He was amazing. I love
think
him.
about the social status that they
Right,
were
right.
in. And like a lot of those people in those status, you had to play the part. And a lot of look at Thomas Jefferson, poor, died
Yeah.
very poor. A lot of these guys, they would call land rich, cash poor,
Right.
and they were always in debt to the merchants in England. So no matter what they exported, if it's tobacco, and Washington experimented with so many different type of crops. He understood that tobacco wasn't it, because you plant tobacco too many times, it just kills the soil. So you rotate, and he would do things. So no matter how much you send over to Europe to the merchants, it's not worth what you want. So you're always in debt. And there were a lot of these big wigs from America who were probably in debt to a lot of people in England. So some of the other reasons for the American Revolution, they say, well, once the war starts, you think Washington's going to pay that merchant in England? Any of those
Exactly.
people.
Yeah.
And because
Yeah.
England was the only place that was providing the furniture and all that stuff, because we were not allowed here to really have any of these industries to make furniture or all do that stuff. So it was a perfect system for the English merchants.
And such a pride. I think a couple episodes we did where we focused a little bit on, it's easy to say boycott, we're not going to buy anything from, well, hold on a minute. You're in the middle of nowhere. It's basically almost like an island, when you're talking about not getting stuff in. So all your sugar's imported. This is imported. This is imported. But it was the intestinal fortitude of the people to come up with their own. I showed a lot of the Washington, the Mount Vernon channel really has a lot of wonderful living history. We've showed a couple of those. What was it like for the women who followed in camp? Why did they follow in camp? What was it like to, just to have to make a meal? What did you have to go through? And when they said they were going to boycott all these textiles and everything else, they had to come up. Well, now they have to make that good New England wool. They had to retrain themselves. This is important for people to know now too, because a lot of people are doing that now as well.
And remember, now you don't have England, so now you have to go to the other countries, Spain, France. At the Battle of Saratoga, America used about 80% of their weapons was from, I think, Spain. They just didn't have iron for it. They didn't have a gun factory. All these people made
gunpowder,
stuff, all this stuff. So they're in New Jersey. We have Batsto. So it's great about New Jersey. We have stuff from the American Revolution, so much stuff from the American Revolution, and sites that are still there that made iron and made this stuff for the Americans, because prior to that, everything is the king's. The metal, the natural resources, the trees, that's all the king's merchandise. So you're not allowed to have these things there because everything is the king's.
Oh, wow. Wow. And so much of the king was using too, a lot of our timber to make all of those wonderful sails and ships and everything else. I mean, this was I think it took England a little while to realize what they had let occur. You know what I mean? Because it hurt, definitely hurt both sides, both sides without any doubt. But this is your wonderful field here, hon. Yeah, I got the best I could.
That's Holmes Hill.
Beautiful.
Looking down, and all the trees you see in the background were not there at the time of the battle. You have that first tree line. That's a brook or a morass at the time of battle. There was no trees there. And if you look behind that, you do see the Sutphin house in the back a little bit, but all that tree line back there was not there at the time of the battle. So it was a very wide open. There were tree areas, but a lot of this had been farmed probably for, since the late 1600s, early 1700s.
Massive, beautiful, and it's really beautifully kept. But I can tell you something: this hill looks like a low grade. I dare you to get down to the bottom of that and walk up it, because I'm telling you, it takes a lot. And I can't imagine at 96 degrees wearing wool, carrying a heavy weapon, or getting shot at coming up that hill. Terrain means a lot to a battle, you know.
Yeah,
But the
yeah,
high ground, and you told me a wonderful story. I don't know if you want to tell that now,
yeah.
but I've
We
got a
could do.
couple other. Oh, this is tell about Lee and what happened with Lee and
Yeah, Charles
Washington.
Lee. So obviously, George Washington, he is commander in chief of all forces,
Mhm,
the whole army, north, south, central, in the colonies. He's in commander of everything. His number two in command is Major General Charles Lee.
mhm,
Um, Washington and Lee they have known each other probably a good 20 years. They fought in the French and Indian War in the 1750s. Charles Lee was a professional soldier in the British Army for um, over 20 years. Washington was a militia for Virginia. He was a volunteer for British General Braddock. So I believe they were at the Battle of Monmouth. I know I'm not saying it right, but so they'd known each other.
mhm,
Lee, and when the revolution was starting, became really into it. He was a major supporter, writing all sorts of letters. He's a very intelligent person. He can
mhm.
speak probably about 6 or 7 languages.
Oh wow.
Um, he's very arrogant, and he knows he has the education. He has the military experience that most of the other um, officers for the American Army that they don't have. So when he, um, I guess, resigned from the British Army and moved to America, it was a big deal to have him part of Washington staff because of his experience. Um, in December of 76, he gets captured up in North Jersey. Oh my God. I guess we call Bernardsville.
Yeah.
It's a town. Gets a Widow's White Tavern. There goes a picture of him being captured. And he was a prisoner from December 76 to April, May of 78. So he missed about a year and a half of Washington's army progressing, improving, becoming experienced, and being trained. And when he was released, he was exchanged for another British officer. It was only right that he eventually would take command of the second half of Washington's army, what would be considered the vanguard. A lot of back and forth between him and Lafayette, and ultimately Lee wanted the command, and he got it. And he was responsible for the first half of the fight at Battle of Monmouth. He gets up to Freehold. The British will counterattack him, and he'll start retreating.
Mhm.
And let me see if I could put up a map
The
for
map.
you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's
It'll
see.
pop through.
Window.
This is a lovely picture of
Let's see.
George here.
That's
Not so much of the white hair there. And you know, it's in between where he was the dark hair picture that I was showing you all the time, and then the very end that you're used to. So there he is.
I'll do this one. I don't know if you can see that or no.
It comes up just a second.
Okay.
Send it through. It'll pop up. Sometimes it takes a little longer. Did you send it through?
I'm hoping I did. Let's see. I think. Let's see. Let's see. Window. Okay, we'll do that. I think I could do it. Here we go.
There it is. All right, here we go.
All right.
Wow.
So this is a map from one of these war games.
Gotcha.
And someone sent it to me, and I just really enjoy it. And I was told it's pretty accurate
Mhm,
to the maps that we have. So you'll see I have the black circle. That's where the
mhm,
visitor center is.
mhm,
This red circle will be Perrine Hill. But so what would happen was Lee would march down this road, which is 522 today. It
Mhm.
is the Englishtown Freehold Road. He was coming out here, and he's getting to this area. Here goes Mom. This would be Freehold today, Main Street. He got into this area, and the British were marching up here. And up top it says, so I can make it a little bigger, Middletown. So what the British were doing, they were marching their 20,000 soldiers from Philadelphia all through here, going up to Sandy Hook. The
Mhm.
goal was get to Sandy Hook. From Sandy Hook, they would go to Staten Island and New York. The British Army was consolidating all their armies into one area, which was Manhattan, which was their base of operation.
Mhm.
So half of the British Army had left early in the morning on June 28th, about 10,000 soldiers. That was all their baggage, all their belongings left early in the morning, about 10,000. As they're leaving, there is a second army under Lieutenant General Henry Clinton, who is the commander in chief of all British forces. Him and Washington are at the same level. He stays back protecting this baggage train, and as Lee is moving up here, there were about 2,000 British soldiers, and Lee was trying to get in between this army and this small army. And as Lee was maneuvering, Clinton turned his army around and counterattacked the
Uh-oh.
Americans. And the
Mm.
Americans are retreating back along this road and up along here. Part of Lee's army is retreating here without any orders, and the army that Lee had with Lafayette, they
Mhm.
were marching up to about here, coming through here, and this is Wemrock Road. As
Mm.
they are retreating, Washington is bringing his army from Monroe to Englishtown, coming to support Lee. And as he is marching along here, he comes across a drummer boy and a couple other soldiers that say the army is retreating. They are being routed, and Washington was a little surprised by that. So he marches along with his aides de camp and meets Lee. The park has some signage right around here. We think it's around here. Doesn't really matter where it happened. What is important is what happened. And Lee believed that he was doing a very good job of saving his army, his retreating army. They haven't given up any cannons. There hasn't really been many soldiers captured. And concerning what had happened to him, where part of his army retreated without orders, with what he had, he was doing a pretty organized retreat. So he thinks he's doing a good job. Washington confronts him, and Washington had a very bad temper.
Mhm.
And so a lot of stories what happened here, but when Lee saw him, he actually thought Washington was going to congratulate him and to tell him what a great job you are doing retreating. But Washington is hearing other things, and he questioned Lee and pretty much says to him, pretty much, what's going on here? What is happening? And the tone that he used caught Lee off guard, and he was shocked and surprised that Washington would use that tone with him.
Mhm.
And since it caught him off guard, he just said to Washington, he's like, sir, sir. And at this point, Washington does what Washington does best. He is in the thick of things, and he organizes the retreating army, and he sets up a defense. So this is, it says Wyckoff, but it is the Ray Farm.
Okay.
All right. So we'll talk a little bit about Lieutenant Colonel David Ray, because this is when he'll come into play. Washington will set up some artillery and infantry right here, and then he's going to set up 4 Virginia regiments in this area. And this is called the Point of Woods. Today, there are no pointed woods here. This is all, if you're from the area, you know the area. Today, this is all apple and peach.
Mm-hmm.
All apple orchards today. There are no trees, and there is a railroad that goes right along here. So that, destroyed part of it. So he set this up here. He sets a defense. He goes to Lee. Pretty much, you could take your retreating army and go back to right up here to Old Tennent Church. This
Mm-hmm.
would become a staging ground, a field hospital for the Americans, and that church is still there today.
Yep, it's right there. We'll show you some more later, but there it is right there.
So he says, follow them or stay here and give me time so I can start bringing up. His army is marching here. Now, Washington has over 10,000, maybe almost 13,000 soldiers that he is bringing up. And Lee said, I will stay here and I will defend this area. So the controversy is because some of the officers said that Washington was cursing or cussing into the leaves were shaken off the ground. And the general who said that was one of the generals who were retreating down here, General Scott, who was at a half a mile to 3/4 mile away. So he did not hear that. Lafayette says other stuff too. How we probably know what was said was because after all this happened, there was a court martial, and Lee said nothing about Washington, whatever the term would have been back then for, using profanity, cursing, cussing at him. And I honestly believe that if he did, I think Lee would have used it against Washington, because Lee and Washington at this point don't see eye to eye, and I'm pretty sure I can say they don't really like each other
at this point. Yeah.
So nothing was said, but the story sounds great because another part of it, Dr. Martin, who's the president of Friends Group, he'll tell on a tour that Washington fired him, did this defense, and then rehired him. But I honestly don't think that's happened. A few biographies on Lee that I've looked at, none of them say that he was fired. Washington approached him, questioned him, and then he left. And Lee had no idea what was really going on because Washington didn't really say much more to him. And Washington set up the defense. And that's where after that, he kind of gave him the options of stay here and defend or retreat back. Because now Washington cannot be here, and he cannot be here setting up his main part of the army. Now, as this is happening, Lieutenant Colonel David Ray is speaking to one of his aide-de-camps, and he mentioned to him there is a rise above the Middle Brook. This would be your Middle Brook. This is your North Brook. This is your South Brook. It's hard to see here. The other map I showed does the contours, but this is a hill right up here. So he told one of the aide-de-camps about this hill, and then what Washington will do, he'll start lining up his soldiers right around here and his artillery from Lieutenant Colonel David Ray recommendation. I know it says Wyckoff, but this is a Ray family. Even the Kerr house here is a Ray farm. They've been here for 3 generations when the battle started. So you're looking at probably a good 150 years, give or take. He knew this land better than anyone else. So the cursing and all that stuff did not happen, but it is one of the great stories and legends of the American Revolution that Washington cursed out Lee, fired Lee, rehired Lee. It sounds so much better than Washington just saying, hey, what's going on?
He just took over.
Yeah, sir,
Yeah.
sir. He took over, did what he had to do,
Yeah.
and then that was all of the action Washington would really see. The British were not there yet. They were still, counterattacking the Americans. And then after that, Washington would be up here for the rest of the battle, where there was really no other fighting that took place there.
hmm
Um,
But you
so
said that you felt that Ray was
Ray to
an
me is the
unsung.
unsung.
Yeah.
He is the unsung hero
Yeah.
of. You don't hear much about him,
hmm
and the only reason why I came across him is when I was reading about it, and then a friend of mine named John Fabiano wrote a article on David Ray, and from that article and from the book Fatal Sunday, which is the newest, most informative book on the battle. Between those two things, they do talk about David Ray informing Washington or his aides of the two primary areas, which are both the high ground, which is Perrine
hmm
Hill, and then a little later on, he recommends, there is another hill you would want to go to, which would be Combs Hill, and um, David Ray will lead Major General Nathaniel Greene with
hmm
4 pieces of artillery, and Nathaniel Greene was up in this area. And 400 to 500 Virginian soldiers from here, probably gone. And this map doesn't have it all, but this is an old colonial road, and it would come up to here, right up into Combs Hill, and they would place it right there. And the British do not, they get there before the British, and the British would probably not counterattack that because, just my opinion, General Clinton was at Bunker Hill. He was one of the main generals leading the attack at Bunker Hill in the beginning of the Revolution, and the British went up with 2,000 soldiers, attacked Bunker Hill 3 times, and even though they did win that battle, they lost 1,000 soldiers,
Yeah.
50% casualties.
A lot.
So I don't know, both of those spots here and here. I don't know if Clinton would say, "Hey, let's charge it up." I think he learned his lesson,
hmm
3 years prior. But that's just my
And that's
interpretation.
so important. Yeah, that's so important because they weren't expecting it. First of all, with Bunker Hill, which is actually Bleecker Hill, was it not? They set up the wrong
Breeds Hill.
Reed's Hill. They actually started setting up and fortifying the wrong ones. So they said, "We'll just have it here," and but he's 100% correct. I mean, I think I absolutely agree with that theory.
And if
Because
you're
you learn when you're in battle, you learn, hey, I made that mistake before. I'm not going to do it again.
And then think about this. It looks like a brook, but this is a
Mhm.
morass. So this is thick mud. Like I said, it had
It
rained
is.
previously. So if the British could not get around them, they were to charge forward. They would have to go through this. They're going to fight that. There are no, as you
All
can
that
see, there
mud.
are
It's
no
like a swamp
trees.
almost, guys. Yeah.
Yes.
hmm
And so they would be completely in the open. And at this point, because it would get closer and closer, the Americans would probably use canister, which is about a
hmm
1 or 2 ounce. It looks like a golf ball.
Yeah.
Put that in a bag, and about 44 of those would be fired. So if they have 4 cannons, 44 times 4 is 170 plus.
Just
Um,
flying down.
plus the 400 to 500 soldiers waiting there. So you're going to have a lot of fire. So it would have probably been a suicide
hmm
attack unless you overwhelm them, which, I mean, could have probably happened, but the British did not attack that.
And all the mud and the swamp and the humidity and these
Yeah, it's a
uniforms and
lot.
this
It's a lot.
and all of this terrain when you walk it, like I said, it takes a lot. You're not carrying anything. You just about halfway you're going, my gosh, this is steeper than I thought, because it doesn't look, it's such a gradual grade up and down. All of this is rolling. So you're
Yeah.
thinking you're bringing the cannon, if you're not bringing it by horse, guys are pulling it. I mean, it's amazing, and to look at some of these cannon. I think I have a picture here of one that you guys have
Yeah,
out front.
for a park that had the largest artillery duel, we only have
Uh-huh.
two cannons, one
I think
outside, one inside.
I know. And this is a
Um,
replica, is it not? It's
both
a
of them are
replica.
replicas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
replicas.
both of them are
And I
replicas.
just the handles and the look of this whole thing. I know that it was, redone. They have a wonderful display there of, the people, the craftsmen and artisans that worked on this. But these cannon were something else. When you're standing there, you're thinking about what got me too was did they have the nubs on the wheels like this to help them get the grip? I mean, were they that to think about it? Because we always think of them being smooth, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it makes it easier.
Yeah.
Also
Little
depends
tread.
on what you have going on. You
Yeah.
know, this is, I think, that like that Swiss. This was not made in America like most
Right.
of our artillery.
Right.
Where
It's
I think
quite the
it's like
thing.
a 4-pounder, but it's like a 5-pound cannonball, and it's
Right.
just.
Right.
But that's that one, and the other one is the only ones we have on site. And I go, why don't we have
What?
more? They said
Yeah.
they're afraid they're going to be stolen.
Right. And before
So,
we let Ray go, I want you to tell about how you got him. Now my son and I walked this entire. This is old. This is outside the old Tennent church, which is he
yes.
mentioned earlier, and we looked that whole place looking for the bronze thing. But we saw so much wonderful art. This is such a lovely. The church is still active today, and but you tell the story how you got with the Daughters of the American Revolution and got him a
Yeah,
little
I
plaque.
will. I will.
But it says his
So
name right on
I
here
don't know if you can
somewhere.
see it
There he is.
I don't know if you
Okay.
can see it.
See
So
that?
that
Yes, I do.
is
Okay. Got it.
so,
Okay, good.
so
Yeah,
that
Ray.
is the only bronze
Plaque.
plaque at the
Plaque.
park. You could see his original.
Headstone.
It's right behind it, and it's very difficult to see. And this is
Uh-huh.
literally as you're walking up the walkway to the church is on the left hand side.
We probably
So
walked right past it, I don't know how many times. Because at first
um
we're looking for the wrong name. I had to look it up and then I found it and then we're looking again and I said, I need to see it. You need to tell the story. So that's just it. When you're dedicated like that and you know that someone is being represented, that's the way to go at it. How long did it take you to get that done?
so
A couple years,
it's
you
a
think? Or I
so
know it
what
was a labor of
happened
love.
was I've been coming to this cemetery for years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to all these different cemeteries, these historic ones, and I take pictures of all the veterans. And I go there and I'm taking pictures of all these veterans. Um, again, let's see. See, that one has a newer marker and it got
Yes, I do
flagged,
see it. Yeah, I
right?
saw that
So,
one. Yes.
and if they don't have that,
Ooh,
they'll have like that bronze one, but it'll be more like marble looks. It's a white one. So I'm
right,
like,
right.
they do such a great job. And I go, why doesn't David Ray, like you can see
Have
in the
something.
background of that picture, you'll see a flag next to that stone there. I go,
Mm-hmm.
why doesn't he not have a flag at least?
Right.
I said, I don't understand. They do an amazing job of putting flags, especially like Memorial Day or in December, they do wreaths across America. So they give all these flags and wreaths, and he had nothing. So I never understood either that they just couldn't read
Mm-hmm.
his. So it's something I thought about for a while, and I started it. And then I actually have a good friend who, before she moved out of New Jersey, was big with the New Jersey DAR genealogy and all that stuff. And I said, "Hey, I went to Old Tennant and I came across a grave that had this really nice marker." And
Mm-hmm.
I said, "It has the DAR Monmouth chapter." I said, "Can you hook me up? Can who can I talk to? Because I want to start working on this David Ray stuff." So I had the application and it's free. Any veteran can get a free marker like this through the National Cemetery veterans
Oh,
there. Fill out the paperwork, they send it to you for free, and then it's up to the cemetery, how that works in the sense of them doing it. Some cemeteries will charge you to install it, but so I was going to start it, and then I was able to speak to someone, And I don't even know how long, a couple months later, a few months later, I went back and I saw the area dug out for the plaque. And then I saw and I got a call saying that we got the plaque. So
Wonderful.
I started it. I didn't do any paperwork. I got the name to the people. They know how to do this because that's one of the DAR does so many amazing things,
Right.
especially with the genealogy and all these plaques and things like that. So they did it for me. And right now I kind of slack because I got to get I'm going to get a plaque that we have to pay for. And it's not cheap, but at
Right.
least they have a marker. And the guy, I think the guy who takes care of the grounds, he did tell me after, he's like, John, no more bronze plaque. People steal them. And I said, I think his name is Ed. I go, Ed, I had nothing to do with it. I just said, this is what I want to get. And they chose that one. He goes, you got to do the other one. So, but it was something like I said, been something I've been wanting to do for a long time because I just never understood why more him
Why
and
not?
most other
Yeah.
people there, how come he didn't have a flag or something newer? Because most other
Right.
people there, no one really knows. Joshua Huddy is a big one for New Jersey. That's a big one buried there. But most of the other people, you have no idea. They're just people who just fought, which is amazing. But David
Yeah.
Ray had a special place in Monmouth, so he should have
That's
had
nice.
something.
Absolutely. I think it's wonderful. And, I think it's cool too. This church, I've heard about this church so much that
Hmm.
growing up in the school, my sister is for I think 30 years, she was the president of the Old Wall Historical Society. So I kind of grew up in this, she got into it when I was like 18. So we're out there taking care of the Alger Barkalow mansion and all that. And I'm scraping the paint off old latrine, outhouses and stuff. It was always part of our to hear about that, and of course a lair and things like that. But you always heard about the old Tennent church,
It's a special
the
place.
bloodstains and stuff like that. Now this little video that I
Walmart.
have, this does not have sound, and I thought we could play it. And if you see something that you wanted to comment on, please do, because I didn't get to go into. Well, let me get
Yeah.
that
Choose from
commercial off.
Your
thousands
best.
of real.
It
Go
is
ahead.
still an active church. It's
Uh-huh.
still active church. And May, Old Monmouth, it's like this weekend in May that you'll probably get 40 to 50 historic sites all open up for that weekend in Monmouth. It's usually like the first or second weekend in May. He is the old pastor.
Mm-hmm.
He was fantastic because you would just go and visit and he'll see you and he'll just drive up because they live right on site. And he's like, hey,
Uh-huh.
you want to go inside? And he'll
Yeah.
give you a tour. Now he is not there anymore. So this
No.
is going to be the saw marks, the blood stains. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about that anymore.
He's saying that they did the DNA and it came up male,
Yeah,
human
it was
male.
all guys there. And then
Mhm.
there should be a saw mark too, because it
It's
was
coming.
a hospital and they would just cut the bones and throw right out the window.
Mm-hmm.
But he is not there anymore. So I don't know who the new pastor is, but they also would have a model of the church that they would have to bring on um, oh God, like there goes the saw mark.
There's the saw mark. So when they were cutting off the leg or the arm, they actually took off a piece of the bench there.
They had a
So
trailer that they would put this massive church, a replica of the church, and he was always at the reenactments with this big church. Great guy, and he knows his history. But like I said, he retired probably a few years back. I don't know who the new pastor is, but he was really a good guy. Like
yeah,
I would just go on a Sunday, maybe after Monmouth, and walk around, and he would just drive up. Hey, you want to come inside? Yeah, sure.
yeah,
I'd
sure,
been inside, but I'll do it again. He was just a really good guy. So
yeah. And you can walk around there all day and read the headstones. And of course, after
Mhm.
toward the end of the episode, I'll tell you the ghost story and stuff like that, because we know that in national parks and things like that. I have a very good friend named Mark Nesbitt who has lived in Gettysburg. On pretty
Oh,
much that whole place is
I've
the battlefield.
I've done his
Yeah.
stories.
Oh, he's wonderful. And he was I want to say, I know he was a park ranger, I think. because he worked for that part, because there's so many different people there. You got the National Trust, you've got all kind of everything else going on. But he was there, and he would say, yeah, because I mean, this guy's written about 31 different ghost books.
Yeah,
But he would tell me, he says, Cisco, we can't even say it on the battlefield. We can't even, we have to say that there's no such thing, and all the, and in Gettysburg, they take it really serious. And now you can get fined $10,000 for being on the battlefield, the Devil's Den, talking to ghosts, whether they're there or not. So we're going to put that at the end, so we don't get, John, any kind of heat there, but there's definitely ghosts there. So
there is,
yeah.
Do we have one of our volunteers? Oh my God, what's her name? And she has written a few books with ghosts and paranormal in New Jersey. And I think she was writing one dealing with maybe the battlefield. We could never do a ghost tour, but what we did do last year was a walking tour to the battlefield, like the lantern, and spoke about some of the more gruesome experiences from the soldier, like hand-to-hand fighting and things like that. And that seemed to be that might be the closest thing you're going to get to a ghost tour in the park. I'm sure if we did a ghost tour and charged $20, we'll get hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Because every historical society does ghost tours, and it just brings in, look at Gettysburg. There's probably 15 ghost tour companies.
Yeah. All up and down Broadway. Yep. It's amazing. So, and it's spreading out. But the thing is, a lot of times it's so funny the way that goes, because in my lifetime, I've gone from where a house or a hotel or something, a business of some kind, would be haunted and they would hide it. And then I went to the decades where they're putting that up front first. It's not even a bed and breakfast anymore. It's a dead and breakfast, because they're getting more, more. But here's the thing. And John and I talked about this a little bit when we were at the museum, was paranormal and supernatural has saved so many historical sites that they wouldn't be, some of them, because they were saved for that reason, and in some cases they're treated well, and in some cases they go the other way, and that's just the way it goes. But history and the paranormal and the supernatural all have a lot to do with each other. It's all connected. Absolutely is.
The historical site, the Dover's and Merchant Tavern in Rahway, they're constantly doing and then I forgot to tell you, it just popped up now. I don't know if she still lives there, but my people, oh my goodness,
that's me too, Scott.
She's a medium. Oh my goodness, red hair lady, heavier set.
Okay, this is from New Jersey. The Jersey Angel.
No, what is? Oh my goodness, I can't believe I forgot. I went to school with her daughter, high school. Jane Doherty.
Okay. Yes.
So where I live in South Plainfield, Jane and her family used to live. I could see their house from my deck behind me, and her daughter was a year younger than me in school, and I knew her older brother because my best friend at the time lived next door to them. So I know Jane's big with the medium stuff, and goes to all these places in October that want to have her, the proprietary house.
It's big. It's big.
Yeah,
it's so big.
Really, especially
and that's it would be nice if we could get people to, to ease up on that too, because there's so many kind-hearted people that just want to help, or just want to understand, or just want to, it's almost like when Mark says it, it's almost like a living history from the dead in some ways, because he's gone through, like, say, at the Farnsworth, I don't know if you ever heard that story, where he was up in the Farnsworth, now the Farnsworth Inn, when the battle happened in Gettysburg, my listeners know this because I love Gettysburg and I'm always talking about it, but that was the high ground in their case. So they're up there, they've got snipers, and they say that that's possibly where the bullet hit Jenny Wade, the whole thing about the only civilian shot in Gettysburg. But Mark's up there because many of these people have been still seen, or ghosts, had been seen up there. And Mark went up there with a friend who was a chaplain, and they were trying to talk to this ghost who was so upset, and they kept getting EVPs that, I didn't mean to do it, and these kind of things. Weren't sure what they was talking about. So they spent a little time going up and trying to get EVPs, through a recorder to talk. So the chaplain had a good idea, and they said this guy was real reluctant to really come out and communicate fully. And they said, let's make him at ease. Let's get dressed in, the regalia uniforms of his time, and go up there and speak to him in that way, and let him, ease up into the part that was really agitating him. And at the very end of it, John, they got an EVP where the chaplain was telling him, you can go. Everything is forgiven. You were a soldier. You did what you had to do, that kind of thing. And he said, turn and look to the light. And there was a little bit of silence on the tape. And the guy, the last EVP that come through loud and clear, said, heaven. And he was gone.
Yeah.
That's Mark and my favorite story. And a lot of paranormal people do it for that reason. You know what I mean? And there's such a kindness and a heart behind so much of it. It's not as, of course you've got the dark and the scary and the bloody and the gore, but you also have the heart that's in the middle. And I think that heart sometimes connects not only with our history, but with our ancestors and our human beings, like Hans Holzer said, they're just people in need of help. So I think, if they could look at it that way, if you ever want to lecture on, on that, if they'd ever let me, you can put me in on a Sunday at 2:00. I'll come down and tell the whole thing, but they wouldn't do it.
For about 4 years,
Yep.
I would head down to Gettysburg once or twice during October. And I think the girl I was dating, I think we did every ghost tour possible. That it just came to a point that we would just go and just walk to those sites ourselves. We walk on Gettysburg College at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, going to the sites, getting into some of the buildings that are still open. We're like, what's going on here? So we did all those for so long. And I did a lot of these ghost walking.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And if you ever want to go around, just grab your fam, call me, and I'll take you around here and I'll show you some stuff too. It's just amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it. And there's always room to learn and, about all of this. And, again, one of the reasons I did this whole thing, like I explained to John how we've done like 10 episodes. We watched Liberty, that 1997 documentary together. We did all that. And then we went over all the things that they're showing on the History Channel that aren't really history. We went through those too. And now you're getting, what we have, the truth that's left. And it's amazing. And one of the biggest truths is that we try to put out there is, if things were happening today, or there's some of the people that we've met along the way here, who did you, who reminds you of you? Who has a little bit of qualities of you? Like I can absolutely, sympathize with George Washington trying to keep his anger at bay, and the desperation, and in some cases, and then just realizing that he could win with just being strategic and being sneaky. He was a cheeky monkey. He did a lot of neat things. And I think when they left the battlefield at that time, John, when the British were just basically headed towards Sandy Hook, we talked about that too, where people say, why didn't Washington chase him? Well, the towns he was going to go through were pretty much filled with loyalists, and he would have had to fight them too. But I thought it was neat how that night they set fires, like they were going to do a camp, and then left. And so many times George Washington had done that to them. I think he probably gave him a thumbs up on that one. What do you think, John?
At that point, there was nothing for Clinton. There's nothing for Clinton to do.
Right.
His baggage train is gone. The Americans are not going to catch up with him. And his goal is to get his army back to Manhattan. And he did exactly that. So, and for the Americans, they're probably tired. They got something good out of this. You're not going to catch up to them. You're not going to get 20,000 soldiers to catch up after For the baggage train, you're probably talking, almost a day,
Yeah, if not more. I
right?
mean,
And then
being so tired and muddy.
in the British Army, you're talking, probably 8 to 12 hours head start.
Mhm. Mhm.
And once the British got to Middletown, which was called the Heights of Middletown, Washington knew he would not fight the British there. He goes, once they got there, like when they're kind of looking for this fight, and if he let the British get to Middletown, he knew he was not going to have any opportunity to fight because he's not going to go up those heights. He
Mhm.
understood that already.
He was a
So that's
surveyor
why
when he was young, so he knew.
this fight at Monmouth had to occur sooner than later because he knew Middletown, the Heights of Middletown was going to be a great defensive position. And once they got there, it was all done. It was
Yeah.
done. And from there, you're relatively pretty close to Sandy Hook. Yeah, Atlantic Islands and Sandy Hook, you're right there.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, Sandy Hook is a coastal town, and there were ships waiting, and that was it. They were gone off to New York. It's just a quick hop, skip, and a jump to New York. So
yeah, in New York and Staten Island. And Staten
Mhm.
Island was a big loyalist
Yes.
part of New York. It
Mhm.
was wide open, all farmland,
Mm,
some hills, and it would be great for the British because the Manhattan we know of today is not the Manhattan of that time, and
that's
part of it
true.
had been burnt, was put on fire. So it's a great spot for 20,000 plus soldiers and all the other people that were shipped from Philadelphia to those areas. You got to include, the loyalists and everyone
Mhm.
else who's not part of the army. So, you're talking 20 to 30,000 people,
Mhm. And then, so
leaving.
it's easy to criticize Washington's choices, but you weren't in the man's boots, at the time, and I think he made the right decision. And again, they say that it was that the Battle of Monmouth was inconclusive, but as I told John, hey, they left the field, we were still on it, we won.
My
That's how I look at it.
So I have a friend. His name is Gary Ecklebarger. He is a Civil War historian. Been writing about Civil War for probably 30 years. He told me 30, 40 years. He just wrote a new book deals with George Washington, and it's a 2-volume book dealing with George Washington from July of 1777 to July of 1778, and it's based off just him.
Mhm.
And he is writing about Monmouth now, and he is a firm believer that Monmouth is a victory for the Americans.
I am
Where
too. I agree.
the park will probably say it's a draw,
Mhm.
but he is a firm believer that it is a victory, a pure victory for the Americans. So look for that. The first book is out already. I'm getting different chapters sent to me on Monmouth.
Mhm.
So I don't know when that's going to be coming out, but he's going to probably a little different stuff than might have been told or has been spoken about or written about Monmouth. He may have a little different stuff, different interpretation.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But I think the one thing that you can really take away from it, along with everything else, is the fact that George Washington needed this for his everybody kind of got off his back after this. You had Dickerson was worried. Everybody was worried in the Continental Congress. Everybody, you got all these armchair quarterbacks, and of course they're getting all this information. We know how long it took to get a note or letter or a message to back and forth. And it was that moment where everything just kind of lifted off of Washington a little bit. And
pretty
now
much,
he had the army that was fighting better together. They had a little bit more direction, and now he just had that gusto underneath of him, and a lot of people rejoined. They gave a lot of people, more volunteers, and people jumped in because we got a chance to win now. Maybe
yeah.
we can win, and that's so important. But I have a little video here. It's just a 2-minute long, and you had told me at the thing how much you like the art too. I love the art. I could look at Civil War art, and and Revolutionary War. And when it's done right, it's an amazing thing.
Here
You
goes
see
to
your whole wall. Oh my goodness, yeah,
I have
yeah,
my map.
I love it.
Colonial map. Daniel Morgan.
Mm.
I have Washington up top. Let's see, a painting up there, and I think it's Surrender at Princeton. I think I won one of them. So this is my little Rev
Your little
War wall.
your little art wall. Well,
Yeah,
I
that's my
found a
Rev
little
Wars.
poster, and as I was telling you, I think that the Mount Vernon, they do a wonderful thing with all living history and everything else. I think it's great. And she pulled this out, and I thought it was very interesting because Americans will always fight for liberty. That's what the poster is called. Let's take a look. Let me know if you can hear this. I think, well, I have to go on this way to do it.
Americans will always fight for liberty. A group of modern soldiers marches past Washington's Continental Army, his standard flying above them. This poster was created in 1943 in the midst of World War II by the Office of War Information. It would have hung in post offices, libraries, train stations, any place where the office felt the Americans would see it and be instilled with a sense of confidence, a sense of patriotism, and a reminder of what Americans were fighting for in World War II. The artist who creates this poster is Bernard Perlin, and he does a number of interesting things. First, he uses the American Revolution as his parallel in this poster, and it is one of the few posters that exists that uses the American Revolution as a reference. Second, he underlines the word always. Americans will always fight for liberty, reminding us that Americans have fought for liberty, freedom, and self-governance since the beginning, and they are fighting for it now. The other interesting thing that he does, he chooses 1778, which in the story of the American Revolution is a very dark time. Most modern references to the American Revolution choose 1776, the year of the Declaration of Independence, that bright, sunny summer. The fall of 1777, George Washington and his army have lost a number of battles in Pennsylvania that have allowed the British Army to occupy Philadelphia, the Continental Congress's capital. His army is forced to camp and spend the winter in Valley Forge outside the city. And it's at Valley Forge that they are at their lowest moment. They face a hard winter of low supply lines with very little food or access to clothing. It is in Valley Forge that George Washington writes he is afraid that if they do not receive food soon, that his army will starve, disperse, or dissolve. So it's interesting that Perlin chooses 1778 as his parallel moment. He's reminding us that in 1778, Americans have faced low odds before. They have faced dark times before, and they have faced sacrifice. But they have succeeded.
Amen, brother. Isn't that something? 1970 or 1778, and I think that's wonderful. And in the words written in common sense, our wonderful Thomas Paine. Are you a summer soldier or a winter patriot? Because this is where you dig in when it's at the darkest time. What are you fighting for? It was worth it when you started. It's worth it to finish it. Hang in there. And I know a lot of people are facing some dark times right now. You can look back in history and see when people faced dark times and what got them through. And that's the whole reason we have done this series. John, it's been wonderful having you. And I'm telling you, I don't want to let you go without you telling this. He told me a little secret I didn't know. We've been studying the Culper spy ring, and we know how that got blown up and all over the place. And we're just so enamored and in awe of these ordinary people who did extraordinary things. But that wasn't the only ring, right, John? He told me another.
Let me see if I could do another presenting and see if I could do this.
Go right ahead. This has been such a blast. I'm so glad you came on.
Let's see, Chrome tab. There we go.
Glad you're still here, Ted. Okay, here it is.
So yes, the Mercer, the Culper spy ring. A book was written about it. The TV show. So most people think that probably was one of the only spy rings. But if you live in New Jersey and New York, we had our own. This is called the Mercer. It's also called the Dayton spy ring. Dayton, the Dayton family is big up in the Elizabeth area. It's Jonathan Dayton, Mercer spy ring, and these were a family based out of Staten Island that did a lot of as you can see right here, Colonel Elias Dayton. They did a lot of spy stuff for Washington and the New Brunswick, Staten Island area. And these are some of the brothers. They help with I think the big one is Major Andre. They played a role in the capture of him.
Did they? Okay.
Benjamin Talmadge, which was part of the Culper, but in general, he was just part of part of a spy master. George Washington would probably be considered the ultimate spy master, but he had Benjamin Talmadge who was helping them out with it. So this is the stuff they did. It's not there's no like direct book about it.
Okay, that's it. We're writing a book together, John. We're going to do the book on this spy ring.
This was from, and then Wikipedia is so much better now, so you could kind of see, some of the information. But a friend of mine named Damien, he does a lot of spy presentations locally. He's from Connecticut, lived in New Jersey, so he does a lot of spy stuff in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Really one of the things he's really good at. So when he started presenting on those things, I was like, oh, this is pretty neat. And I started getting into the spy rings and started looking for some of the spies that were more of some of the local ones, New Jersey and New York. And there's quite a few, but these guys. And then after the war, a lot of them moved up to New York, west of Binghamton area, Broome County. And I have been able to visit some of these guys here and get pictures of their graves. So so this is another one, Mercer spy ring. Look it up online. I don't know if there may be some videos, but this is
I'm going to look into it.
Probably should get more attention to it, but unfortunately, Turn they just did it to a way it's hard not to get into it.
Right. And again, you could pretty much imagine that it was pretty much the same thing. I mean, they had to be a spy in this time, and that's something I wanted to really emphasize when I was doing the Culper spy ring. It wasn't just what they were doing. It's the fact, again, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, taking that chance, and you're living in you might be in town living in a house right next to somebody who feels that direct opposite of you. And, how did they keep their cover? How did they, those calls that almost didn't happen because they almost got caught. I mean, if you got caught, you were hung as a spy, and no two ways about it. There was one for treason and that was it, but, going through their daily life, just being afraid to say something at the fruit stand, you're buying some apples or something, and the person next to you says something, the next thing you know, you're turned in. This was an amazing thing for anybody to take this chance, and I think everybody that did this should be heralded as heroic, for giving it a try, whether you were in the French Resistance or being a spy here. And so they reported basically to Talmadge as well, and then Talmadge to Washington, right? And so they've probably followed the same ciphers and codes and and things like that to get out messages, things like that. Were there any I know we go through a lot back and forth with the whole 355 and all that, and we talked about whether or not they took a lot of liberty with that, with Anna Strong and things like that. But this was a family, so if you have a family, you're going to have if there's a girl in that family or whatever, a lot of people, how many people did we pull up? There were 16. They were, the young girl that was on the ride with Paul Revere, and all of these are unsung heroes that we're trying to bring forth, and and give them a little light. This is amazing.
And this is 3 of the Merceros. There were more, and then the other people they had working for them. There's a Meeker. There's a couple of brothers that were buried in Elizabeth that I had to jump over the fence to get into the cemetery because it wasn't open to the public, just to get pictures of them. But you just have these main people, and there's so many other people working underneath. Like here goes John Meeker. So there's all these other people that I started. Asher Fitzrandolph. If you live in Woodbridge, Piscataway, South Plainfield, Randolph is a huge name. That family is huge, and I think Asher, he's buried up in Woodbridge. So I've been to that one. So there's just so many big names that we just don't know about, but because there was a book and a TV show, people just assumed that was it. But I've been to so many Spies, and the really good ones we just don't know, and that's the way it should be.
Right? Isn't that
really
something? I know. It's almost like the old way we used to look at the CIA, and you just saw that wall of stars and everybody was nameless. And I think there's so many in this, again. And I wanted to emphasize this too, because you in your day, whatever you're doing to get by or to help somebody, and nobody knows it, do it anyway, because it reverberates. We talk about the butterfly effect, dropping the pebble into the lake and the ripples that go out. You may not see where the ripples go, but if you're doing something in kindness and something that's correct and something out of love and something out of being correct and moral, it usually reverberates out and expands and spreads that light. And I think that's wonderful. And it says right here, the ring played a role in the capture of British Major John Andre, who we dearly love here. I know he was the enemy, but I just liked his style. Ultimately exposing the betrayal of American General Benedict Arnold. And we went over him like crazy. Benedict Arnold, and what he went through. Thank you so much, Scott's Life. Thank you, darling. You're so busy out there and throwing us money. Thank you, darling. We appreciate it. Goes right into
great. They got all the good information here on all these guys.
I know. And he, listen, I think that was a divine act, the way the whole thing went down with Arnold and the timing of everything. Boy, Washington had that I think he had a divine touch. I really do.
So he had someone looking out for him. And then the one guy, John Bakeless, he's been writing about this for a long time. And then there's another guy, John Nagy. He started a couple of things like the invisible ink stuff, and then he passed away not too long ago. And I think he was finishing up a book, but his earlier books are fantastic when it comes to the spy stuff, especially his invisible ink, because that was John Jay's brother.
Incredible.
And another guy we forget about, John Jay, also had a spy ring in New York that we just don't hear anything about. So there's these spy rings going all over the place. But again, a TV show and a very popular book happens, and people just forget about this is going on throughout on both sides. This is not just Washington. All these Washington, Clinton, all these guys had spy rings going throughout.
Oh, sure. And like the French and British, they all had it down. I think everything that Washington did, they had to figure out along the way. I mean, we're talking about, yes, he had, experience in the French and, Indian War, all that. And he learned some things from that, what not to do. And he was really trying to unfold all this along the way. And keep in mind, he wasn't getting a lot of good backup. They didn't have supplies. They didn't have any way to collect, taxes. Congress didn't have any control over that. Everything was like donated or whatever. I'll never forget the letter he wrote back to John Hancock, who during, I think it was while he was at Valley Forge, and, everything they were going through in Valley Forge, I couldn't even barely get through all that because it was just so devastating. The bloodstained footprints and stuff, it's like, and we complained, if the electric goes out for 10 minutes, you know what I mean? It's just, we were so tough back in the day. So he, at Valley Forge, I think he really went through so much there, finding himself and trying to regain everything. It's such a horrible time, but it was such a prominent time to show each one of these people what they really were and what they could get through. And, it's great to look back at history to see the things that other people went through, because it gives us hope today, and said, gosh, if these people went through it, if they hadn't gone through it, we wouldn't be here. It's just an amazing tale. And I'm so glad I met you. And I hope this is a friendship we will continue. We definitely, I'm putting you on my speed dial from one of my historian contacts. So I think it's wonderful. And you guys are doing such a great job there. And I just love it.
God, all the great information. I'm going to post a couple of websites. So first one I'm posting in the chat is our friends. I guess it didn't happen. It was our Friends of Monmouth Battlefield. Friendsofmonmouth.org is our volunteer site. And then Friends of Monmouth on Facebook. We post all our events there, and that's the more specific. That will actually say what specific tour we're doing, what specific lecture we're doing at, and that's run by one of our volunteers. And then the other one, if you live in New Jersey and you want to visit Rev War sites, the best page. Let me see. Let's see if this one works. No, I can't post it. Let me just. I'm gonna share it really quick. Let me see. Can you see?
Is it this one? Let me see. No, that's that one.
Are you seeing this site here?
I'm not.
Let me present. I'll do it really quick. Let me see.
I think it's working because that one disappeared. It's tricky, but you're getting it. Right, you do a lot of Zoom meetings, huh?
It's been a while.
StreamYard's a little different. You get used to hear this.
So this is one of the best websites I've ever seen when it comes to sites in a state. Luckily for us in New Jersey, this gentleman, Al, went and visited hundreds and hundreds at every historical site dealing with the American Revolution, and it took him years.
Yeah,
he wrote a book about it. You see up top, he wrote a book about it. And what you do is, like, I live in Middlesex County, so I click on Middlesex County, and he has it broken down by towns.
Wow.
And all the different sites, and then you click the town, and then from there it will, like I live next to Piscataway, and it will show you all the different sites and where he gets in. For everything is cited, documented. He has everything on here. So when I'm driving through New Jersey, and I'm in a certain county, I always go to this site and I look to see, all right, and he has directions on, so you could click on it. They'll bring you up to Google Maps. So if you live in New Jersey or you're going to be visiting New Jersey, you want to see historic sites of the Revolution, it doesn't get any better than this.
It's amazing.
I wish every state would have
something like
this site, like something like this. And there was I guess there's over 600 sites that he's had visited.
Wow. What a lifetime, achievement there. That's something
I
only know of one other, and it's a ghost site. And it's a young man called Seeks Ghosts, and he does the exact same thing, but with haunted places in the United States. So you click on your state, you can see if there's, so I've seen something similar, but that is amazing, for that gentleman to go through and do all that. That's great. Well, I'll tell you what, we're to finish up. If you'd like to stay with us, I have 6 more minutes. If you'd like, I thought I would take us to the Museum of the American Revolution and maybe take a look at a couple of these things. And one of the major things that they have there now is General Washington's tent They're very proud of it. It's got its own stage. And I can't imagine just sitting there. Have you seen it? Have you gone and seen it, John?
I did when it first opened. So I was able to get tons of pictures. Now you're not allowed to take pictures, but I was able to get tons of pictures of it, and it's amazing. It's amazing video.
It's in Philadelphia. I can't play you the first minute because they're playing Philadelphia Freedom. We'll get a copyright strike, but I can play you this much. So all you're missing is just the introduction with Elton John singing about Philadelphia. So here we go. I think. No, wait. I'm not doing it. Hold on. I messed it up. Hold on. Let's get it right. Now.
When the nation's future
fix it
hung in the
there.
balance.
I think it's amazing his tent is still around, but
Its centerpiece, this.
okay.
Today,
Now maybe.
Washington's tent is here. Centerpiece, this. Today, Washington's tent is
Not the
here.
sound
George
off?
Washington's tent, enshrined now in its
One
own
second.
theater, reminding us of
For some reason
times
it's not
when the
playing the
nation's
sound. Let me get
future
it.
hung in the balance. As his soldiers did, you see it as a stand.
Sometimes the YouTube sound will mess up. So let's see. We didn't have any problems before. I could still hear you, so our sound's still good. Okay, that should be fine. See if we can get it. What's going on?
Centerpiece, this. Today, Washington hung in the balance. As his soldiers
Should be
did,
playing. I don't know
you
why
see
it's
it
not.
as a stand-in for Washington himself.
The tent was the symbol.
What's
He
wrong
said,
with
I've never
you?
left your side. I've been with you through the entire war.
Okay, chat. Why am I
Every one of
not
those
getting
men
sound on the
Knew
YouTube
that
when
they
I
had seen
share?
those candles burning late into the night. And these are all objects in this gallery that were
Okay, let's go back.
I heard the sound of it.
Did you hear it? Are you guys
Yeah.
hearing the sound?
I heard him
Sweeties?
speak.
Hey Pam, welcome in. Hey Cam, welcome in. Let me see if I can do it one more time and see if I can get it. You were hearing it. Are you guys hearing it in chat? 5. Oh, you are. Okay. Good. All right. As long as you guys are hearing it, I've heard it before, so we're good. So I'll put it back up. Yeah, it's such an amazing thing. I hope to go see it one day.
Oh, it's a must. The whole museum is a must to visit.
Okay.
Its centerpiece, this.
There we
Today,
go.
Washington's
All right,
tent
you guys hearing
is
it?
here. George Washington's tent, enshrined now in its own theater, reminding us of times
Audible?
when the
Okay.
nation's
Thanks, Kat.
future hung in the balance.
There it is.
As his soldiers did, you see it as a stand-in for Washington himself.
the tent was the symbol that he said, I've never left your side. I've been with you through the entire war. And every one of those men knew that they had seen those candles burning late into the night. And these are all objects in this gallery that were present during that fighting.
Scott Stevenson is president and CEO of the museum.
Imagine it's the morning of April 19, 1775, and on that hilltop are those companies of Minutemen. And the British march in.
Concord, Massachusetts, where it all began. The two sides fought it out that first day of the war at the North Bridge.
There had been firing early in the day at Lexington Green, but for the reason that 2 British soldiers fell there at the bridge, this was considered the shot heard around the world.
On display like a holy relic, a piece of that original bridge.
This beam literally heard that shot fired on the morning of April 19th.
But the museum sees its mission as doing more than reinforcing for visitors.
I love to see the kids.
725,000 so far. A mythologized version of the American creation story.
What I want them to come away with is realizing
still
that
is.
this is not just a quaint story that's set a long time ago, that only involves people that look like me, standing with wigs on, looking at a piece of paper on the table. There was violence that was involved. There was uncertainty. There were people of all backgrounds who were involved in creating this nation.
Who didn't always get along. During the winter of 1775, George Washington really did break up a snowball fight between militiamen he was trying to unite into an army.
And the snowball fight essentially turned into a riot where about 1,000 people were engaged in fighting each other right out here in Harvard Yard.
Yes, of all places, Harvard Yard.
They were here.
Vincent Brown is a professor of African American history at Harvard. He advised the museum. And there were African Americans involved.
There were African Americans involved, there were Native Americans involved, and lots of local people.
African Americans have largely been left out of the revolution narrative.
If you're not making $158,000 per year, but you'd like to, I strongly...
But not here.
You know, they've got that great moment in the museum where they're asking you to imagine a conversation between two Black people, one a British soldier and one an enslaved person who is trying to figure out what they want to do in that environment.
The proposition, freedom, in exchange for running away and joining the British Army.
You know, there are about 15,000 Black people who fought for the British during the American Revolution, and about 5,000 Black people who fought for the Patriots.
Slavery expanded exponentially after the war. On full display, an uncomfortable contradiction.
Well, one of the most powerful things I think in the museum is that set of manacles for a child that must have been used on an enslaved child. How could we have manacles for a child in a museum about the American Revolution, which is supposed to be about freedom? It gets us thinking.
About difficult decisions, about winners and losers.
African Americans and Native Americans were losers of the American Revolution.
The Oneida people lost big time. Part of a union of 6 Iroquois nations, they had no choice but to take sides.
That conflict came on Iroquois lands, our lands.
Ray Halbritter heads the Oneida Nation in New York.
Well, our Oneida people decided to ally with the colonists.
Other tribes chose to go with the British.
Yes.
The Oneida were the unsung heroes of Valley Forge.
Well, our people knew and heard about how George Washington's army was starving, so we brought hundreds of bushels of corn in midwinter.
They were promised their allegiance would preserve their lands and way of life. It didn't.
Well, through the years, a number of fraudulent treaties took place, and we lost our land.
So the nation started out 6 million acres.
Yeah.
What did it end up?
32 acres in...
That's it,
the
32 acres.
32 acres.
When you started out with 6 million.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
Yeah, it is.
The Oneida, now supported by casino revenue, donated $10 million of the museum's $150 million cost, so their story would be told. So that alongside the muskets and child-friendly entertainments, a nuanced, warts and all version of the American Revolution shines through.
Are we mature enough as a nation, as a culture, to not sweep under the carpet all of the terrible injustices that were done? And it's not an unpatriotic act to shine light on those and acknowledge them.
And to connect the dots between long ago battles and ourselves. I see Meet the Future of the American Revolution in mirrors. Why?
So
Meet the future.
Is a moment when we want everyone to see themselves reflected in the story that they've just been through. And it's a reminder that we are swimming in a stream of history. Ultimately, our future is together.
Well, how about that? I think that's a nice way to finish up here. You're muted, honey. John, you're muted. There you go. Isn't that something? So that's just a little piece of the American Revolution Museum in Philadelphia. Of course, the Liberty Bell. So many things are there, and the Independence Hall that is called now. I think it's funny that Lafayette was the one that came through and named it that. I don't know how many decades later, but that's interesting how so many people, so many touches that still reverberate today. Again, ordinary people what would history say about you if you were involved in something today? What would you be doing? So, John, I could tell you what you'd be doing. You'd be cataloging it and researching it, right? It's been a blast.
Or working in it, you know.
Yeah, or working in it. That's for sure. But
Well,
we do
thank
learn
you
so
for
much from the
having me.
past.
Thank you for having me.
Oh,
And if you've never been to that museum, I would definitely go visit the museum, and then go to the Second Bank of America for their amazing portrait gallery of all the oh my God, what's the painter's name? It's like father, son. They all did a lot. They're the ones who did a lot of paintings of all the officers. And they have the second, it's a portrait gallery, the Second Bank of America. A lot of their paintings are there. All the big names that they did, they're all there.
That's incredible.
And it's free. That's free.
That's free. You can go.
The Museum of the Revolution, you have to pay for, but the portrait gallery, the Second Bank, is amazing.
And so is the Battle of Monmouth, the battlefield there. I just think it's incredible to me that anytime I ever stand in the middle of something like that, and I just imagine what it must have been like for these young men. And I stood in the middle of the field, and I just did a little circle. Standing in the middle of the field. This is right in the middle. Where all the action took place. It was 100 degrees that day. The battle started at dawn.
Come do a walking tour of me, and I'll take you to the good spot.
And it ended at sundown. I'd love to. As you look up here, you can see that building far off. This is where Nathaniel Greene had his artillery set up and created a crossfire toward the British, which finally ran them off. There was as many casualties due to heat stroke that day as there were to artillery or gunshot. Almost. But I will tell you, according to here at the Visitor Center, not one American fell to heat stroke. They were all British. Probably. I have a theory on that. They had those heavy, heavy wool uniforms. Many of ours here were militia in cotton shirts. Look at that. Some of these trees were here and witnessed. But I stand on the field in the middle of Monmouth battlefield. And even though they say it's inconclusive, I personally give this one to Washington. You bet I do. Well, there you go. Man, I'll tell you what, this has been a blast. John, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you had a very busy day, and I appreciate it. And you are welcome back on this show anytime. If you ever get a story that you want to tell, you just text me, and we'll put together a show, and we'll share it with the listeners. They love to learn and to hear about all this amazing stuff. Thank you so much for being here. And thank your family for not having you this evening, and you spent it with us. We appreciate it.
And again,
is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
First Sunday of every month at 1:30, I do walking tours. So check Facebook, Friends of Monmouth Battlefield, and then from there I keep updates just in case it may rain or snow or too hot or too cold. But I'm usually the ones who do all the tours throughout the year, except maybe for this October I won't be doing a tour, but I'll be ready for November though.
Yeah. Okay. If I go on one of your tours, you're going to come on one of mine, and I'm going to take you on ghost tours.
Yeah. November through April are the best times. October is a horrible time because of all the apple and pumpkin picking that will be happening this weekend and for the next how many weekends?
There was a lot of people picking peaches and apples out there. I was surprised that its season seemed to come so fast. I mean, it's where's the time go?
Any nice day. It gets nuts. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Throw him some bacon, people. Tell John thank you. We're so glad to have you. Bacon is love around here. So if you happen to be a vegetarian, we will throw broccoli at you, but only on request. Thank you so.
The bacon is good.
The bacon is good. Bacon is love, baby. We're just so glad to have you and your
Thank you,
new
everyone. I
friend of the
appreciate it.
show. And thank you
Thank you.
for taking all this time. You have a good night, sweetie. I'm gonna
You
say
do the
good night.
same. Thank you.
I'm
Bye-bye.
here anytime. Don't be afraid to
Sounds
text. Bye
good.
bye, sweetheart.
All right, bye.
Thank you. Well, there you go. And I just go to these places and I just snag up people and bring them here to talk to you. I wanted to tell you a little before we go, because this is the finale and I wanted to make sure you guys got a ghost story before we go. And I've tried to put them all through this. I know I've had a lot of people tell me, why is she doing history? And apparently people get together in chats and talk about how I do my show and stuff, which is, I don't even know why that would happen, but here it is. I pretty much put all the money in it. I put all the research all the time. This was important to me. I appreciate my listeners for letting me do it. This really meant a lot to me to have this in a playlist. And when I went to Monmouth Battlefield, I actually got to do it and hand that woman a card who was so upset that they were not teaching this in school to her sons. She was trying to learn about it. And I said, here, take this. It's free. There's at least 12 videos. There's all kind of stuff. There's a couple of ghost stories in there and a couple other things, about the spy ring and things like that. Please sit down and watch it with them. Invite a couple of friends, have, spread it all over the place, because we need to know this. This is our history and it's important. It's important to both sides. It's important to everybody that was involved, whether you were Lafayette or Cornwallis or John Andre or Anna Strong, or if you were the, little Christopher Sider, who the little 10, 11-year-old boy who was shot right before the Boston Massacre. All of these people made their spot in history and did the best they could with what they had in their time. We here are all going through our own personal struggles now. People, family, friends, workplace, whatever you might be going through. And I so wanted this to inspire you to press on. You never give up. You might have to adjust and adapt and overcome, but you press on. You don't ever let it go. There's too much to lose of your own personal space that you need to keep. I'm trying to talk in code here, but you understand what I mean. Things are changing around us, and there's some things you're going to be able to control and some things you can't. And then there's some things that you're not going to be able to think you can get through, but you can. You can. And you can look back at some of these wonderful stories and these wonderful people who went through very trying times and dug down deep inside and found one more step, one more step, one more step. People say take things one day at a time. If you have to, I'm on the minute plan myself. I take it a minute at a time sometimes, and that's fine. Whatever you need to do to find that intestinal fortitude and pull it forward and get what you need to get done for you. Okay. So the old Tennent church, we spoke on it, and this is it here. It's beautiful. A lot of you in the chat were saying you can't believe it's still standing, and I don't know how it is either. I'm so glad it is. I heard about it all my life. I went there about 50 years ago. My mom took me there. It was when she was getting really sick, and I think she was trying to do some things that, to, cheer me up and, make some memories, and she did. I remember her taking me through, and of course it's changed over 50 years, but one of the things we did do is we went to a couple of the markers for the my picture, and she told me about it. And then she took me to this church, and she showed me, at that time you could go in, and she showed me the bloodstains, and she told me about the soldiers and how scared they were and how far away from home, and how when you're hurt like that, you just want people that care about you, and you're worried about your brothers that you fought with and everything else. But she said that this church was a special place, that they, like many homes and many other, that we've heard through the Civil War and everything else, they did use it as a makeshift hospital. And the young man who is said to haunt this, I'll read this to you. Old Tennent Presbyterian Church, located in Manalapan, New Jersey, was the first Presbyterian congregation in the United States. It was established in 1692. A Scotch Presbyterian built Old Tennent Church in 1751. It was named after two of its most beloved ministers in the 18th century, who were brothers, John and William Tennent. This church is still used for worship today. They had service when I was there. It was quite to see. It was wonderful. During the Battle of Monmouth, during the American Revolutionary War in June of 1778, Old Tennent was used as a temporary hospital. This church building still has the marks of cannonballs that struck it during this battle. As late as 1916, 4 cannonballs were dug up near the church. This is the outside. Of course, it's so much more now. There's still have people buried there today. I was surprised to see how many new headstones there was. Now, a soldier by the name of Tunis Coward was sitting in the graveyard that is by Old Tennent Church, watching the Battle of Monmouth. That's where, if you remember, John had told you that's where Lee took his men back to rest. He unfortunately chose the wrong spot to sit, for a cannonball struck him in the leg and then sheared off the top of the red sandstone tombstone behind him. His friends discovered his dead body and carried him to the church and placed him on the back pew, where the bloodstains are still seen. Its pews are still scarred and saw marks that cut wounded limbs from soldiers that would have otherwise died. One pew's wood bench, the second from the last, is stained by the blood of one of these brave soldiers. A story about one soldier that was wounded by the cannon fire during the Battle of Monmouth and died. This story resulted in a well-known ghost legend, is still today. This is another picture. Ever since this soldier's ghost has been seen by witnesses wandering through this graveyard, there are 120 Revolutionary War veterans buried there. The red sandstone marker that was sheared in half by the cannonball that struck him still stands. I stood right in front of it. This legend has endured for so many years that even the name of the soldier killed has been changed so that one tombstone in this cemetery can be used as proof it did exist. Now, there is a tombstone that says, let me get this up here. Let me make sure I got the right one here. Okay, so, oh, I just messed it up. The story, I can tell you right now that there's more than one ghost there. Okay? People tend to combine things. Like I saw that soldier. Oh, it must be the other soldier. There's several soldiers that walk around the graveyard, been seen in different dress. So I know there's more than one. There's also a young girl, I believe, that passed. I think her name was Cookie. That's right. So let me read you this real quick. This is the Weeping Soldier and the Ghost of Cookie. So I am a resident of Englishtown, a town which should have its own section for odd people in weird New Jersey. I can attest to that. However, I am writing to you about a church on the outskirts of Englishtown, actually found in Manalapan, called the Old Tennent Church, which was involved with the Revolutionary War. Soldiers from the Battle of Monmouth were buried on the grounds, and children's gravestones are found around the church, possibly from smallpox outbreak. It's absolutely full of them. The legend that I've heard from everybody in town is that the church may be haunted. Many say at midnight you can see ghosts of soldiers walking around the cemetery. But the odd thing about this church is one of the last pews on the left side of the church, there is a blood stain on the seat. In order to see the blood stain, you have to lift up the cushion on the seat, as we saw in the video. It's told that at midnight, if inside the church or looking through a window, the ghost of a soldier sits at the pew and cries. I have been inside the church on a calm sunny day when, out of nowhere, the doors have slammed shut and a gust of cool air swept through the building. Also, in this same cemetery, there is a gravestone for a girl named Cookie. She has a picture of herself on the grave. The legend I've heard is that she was killed when she was waiting for her prom date to pick her up on prom night, around the end of May or beginning of June. Flowers always appear on her grave, and on the anniversary of her death, she is said to be seen either roaming the graveyard or waiting at the entrance calling her date's name. And that was sent in by Christy Toth. So I have heard these stories in New Jersey all my life, and I've talked with people who have seen this ghost. There is another one at Allaire State Park, which is very similar, and it's a weeping ghost of Mr. Allaire, whose wife died of smallpox, and he was just totally grief stricken. And I went to school right next to where that building is, and we used to go there all the time, and you could see the light come on. And the thing is something about the ghosts that are crying really get to me, because all I want to do is get in there and help them. So rest assured, I'll be going back to Old Tennent Church. And I hope if you're ever here, you get a chance to see it, or to go to any one of those other wonderful sites. This has been an absolutely amazing time, and I appreciate you guys so much for being here with us. Next week, I've got quite a few things planned for Halloween. I hope if half of them come through, we're going to have a good season. We're also going to do Cabin 22. I want to tell you, go look for John. Ask him questions about history. He's right there, and it's a wonderful resource to have. And if he doesn't know the answer, he was really great about giving me other names and stuff like that. This person knows a little more about that, a little more. And I love people like that. They don't BS their way through it. They'll tell you, that's not really my forte, but this guy is. And I love that. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to do this. This meant so much to me. Lots of prayers and love to beautiful little Holden and his wonderful family, Steve and Nick. It was so good to see him. They're going through that brand new baby at home, trying to get their bearings straight. It's so funny how this tiny little thing can come in your household, just turn everything completely asunder, so wish them rest and sleep. And it's a blessing that Holden is doing so wonderful and such a beautiful job. So there's that. Send happy thoughts and energy to Lynn in prayer to get better. She was sorry that she could not be here tonight. And I said, you know what? We're going to wing it. We're going to put it through. We'll just reschedule. We'll just adapt and overcome. And I think we did. I think it was a beautiful show. I was so glad to at least have a way to take you there to something that was close to me to finish all this off. And when you retouch that ground, it does something to you. And I hope that you'll look around your neighborhood and see what history is going on there, in your town, in your place, and reconnect to that, and I just love y'all. So thank you so much for being here. This is the end of Liberty, and we're just so glad that we had this time, and it's meant an awful lot to me. And I thank you guys for going through it with me. You've been just stellar, and the questions and your knowledge and the things that you put in, it really added so much spice and flavor to the whole thing. And I can't thank you enough for that. So we're going to get out of here tonight. Hope to have something on for tomorrow night. I am going to try to do the fall mixes, mystery mixes for you guys, dropping them around noon on a Friday, because I wanted to kind of hit people that, maybe at a different time, maybe it's better, maybe if it is hitting you at a different time, you can listen to while you're driving, or while you're doing the dishes, or, mowing the yard, whatever it is you're doing. And get some joy out of that. And it also, I think the most important thing too, is that it gives you that live chat. So if you need to reach in and connect with some good energy in the chat, say hi, how was your day going, or whatever, this has really become kind of a circle of friends where we all reach out and make each other feel a little bit better when we're feeling down. We try to lift each other up. We try to keep those lights on. And I'm doing it for that too. So there's a good 4 to 5 hours that in your day, if you just want to come in and say, hi, everybody, how you doing? And retouch and connect to that light, it might help us get through the next couple months that we've got coming up. And, you know, I'm going to do that for you if I can. And I hope you enjoyed the mysteries as well. Sometimes I'll listen to those things 2 or 3 times and I'm like, wow, I didn't hear that the first time. So those are there for you. And I hope you enjoy it. And I'm going to keep trying to bring you good stuff for as long as I can, guys. Okay. I love you. And it's great to come in here and, you know, attach to that energy. Thank you guys for being so kind to John. And I hope you're doing well today. That's all I want for everybody. You know, to get through this, we can do it. We'll do it together. Just like that band of that group there that came together that John showed us in that picture. You know, we might not all be from the same place, or it doesn't matter. You know, human beings. We're just trying to be good humans. And we're just trying to reach out and touch each other in a way that's not illegal. Does that make sense? Okay. Let me find a good song. I think we might just dance the blues away tonight. What do you think? And I'm so sorry, Ted, that I lost your, I had a computer shut down and wiped everything on my computer. So all of that, yeah, hard work, hours and hours and hours of making videos to make you smile. Some of them are gone, and that's okay. We'll just make new ones. We will adapt and we will overcome. No sense crying over spilt videos. So here's one, and I love it. Makes me feel good, and I hope it makes you feel good too. So kick off those shoes and let's dance away the blues. I love y'all. Oop, wait, maybe I don't. Yes, I do. Good night, babies. Go spoons and cuckoos, yeah. Love you, Scott. Thank you so much for your generosity. I appreciate you, darling. Love you, D-Rock. Thank you, baby. I tried. Sleep well, Bernice. D-Rock. Please. Katita, thank you for all your help. Wonderful recipes. For all those wonderful links. Thanks for being a great mom. We love you. Love you too. You the best. Yes, please hit that like.